Do-do-do. April Fool's. Oh, April Fool's Day. But I'm not doing April Fool's bullshit today, so. Because I don't do that. What? Well. Oh, fuck. Okay. I had to. What? Oh, I see. Is this thing working? See what we watched today. I was wrong about everything. Oh no, man. Oh. What? Oh, Matt Gaetz stuff more. Oh, so now Hassan's covering the Matt Gaetz thing. What else is there? Breaking. Kim Jong-un's fury over America's detention. Detention what? North Korea's top official. What? I didn't hear about this. What? Jeez. See. Oh shit. What's happening in Burma? Let's see. There's a thing on interview. Oh, let's see this interview. This is interesting. It's 3 days ago. All right.
Hello, and welcome to another non-compete international edition stream. Today we're going to be talking about Myanmar, but we will be calling it Burma for reasons that will be explained to you in just a few moments when our guest joins us.
Hello there.
But yeah, Luna's here. We're actually simulcasting on non-compete YouTube and Twitch and Luna's YouTube channel. So welcome.
But I paused by accident.
To the stream. We'll be watching chat from all three of those locations. And if you have questions, please let us know. But we're going to start with like an overview of a little bit of the history and the situation up until now. So
okay.
I know that a lot of people in the chat have been expressing the same feelings I have, which is it's really difficult to get accurate information about the situation. But the person we're talking to has been there and and knows quite a lot, and we'll get the story from the horse's mouth. But we talked to this group, Dindang. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but a couple weeks ago, and the live stream archives will be coming out within the next 24 hours. I'm just adding the metadata in right now, and then they will be available at youtube.com/noncompetelive to watch the archives of this stream and the Thailand stream, and you can catch up on this important information. But anyway, that's enough.
That's enough advertisement.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Welcome to the stream, G. How you doing?
I'm all right. How's it going?
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, like the tone of the last stream was a little bit more, I guess, funny. We were a little bit more laid back, but things are obviously getting pretty serious here in Myanmar, Burma. We were going to talk last week, but actually I had to reschedule, and now I'm a little bit glad that we did because there's just so much that's been going on in the last week. So I don't know where to begin. Do you want to maybe start by introducing yourself as much as you are able to without doxing yourself, and then
this is about
your background and how you
him interviewing a person in Burma.
Situation?
Sure. I should also say you can probably tell by my accent already. I am not from Burma. However, we do have. I've been trying to get my comrade on the line today, so he may be joining us later. Fingers crossed. Yeah, but he's not.
Obviously, the internet's not. Even when I went there, the internet was never super stable there, so it can be difficult even in normal times. But we'll do our best to try to get somebody who actually is on the ground there.
And he's a great comrade. So, but about me, so I'm a journalist and a writer for Dindang, which is a journal based in Thailand, which focuses on Southeast Asia. But in my past life, I worked in media advocacy in Burma, specifically in Kachin State and Karenni. And so I worked for a very small NGO, which was basically me and one other guy, and we had no funding, always running on fumes, And we did media training, journalism training, workshops, mostly in Kachin, which is a insurgent province in northern Burma, where the Kachin Independence Army, who are the KIA, control a decent amount of territory. And so a lot of these projects we did were in KIA-controlled areas.
Interesting.
So that's kind of my experience with Kachin, which is very much with Burma, which is very much in the ethnic minority, specifically Kachin and Karenni side. So it's going to get really ridiculously complicated, right? Because there's all these different sides to Burma, which we're going to have to talk about. Yeah. But that's my little corner of experience is there.
We have one person in the audience watching who says, hi, I'm from Burma. Wow. Burma is now ruled by far-right fascist military regime who had also committed genocide against Rohingyas people, and they killed more than 400 civilians who protest against them. Well, thank you for watching. William, if you have anything to contribute to the conversation, we'll be checking out for your name. But yeah, so I feel like what I do know is probably has like riddled with inaccuracies. Even though I've been to Myanmar, I mean, I've just learned so much that I think is misinformation and probably inaccurate. So why don't you? Well, I'm just going to be.
What does he mean by that?
Blank slate now. Why don't you just
there is a lot of confusing
the history of Burma, and that you could just briefly bring us up to date, and then we can get more in depth about the current situation.
Okay, sure. Quick question: does my voice sound weird? Because somebody said I have a voice changer on, but that might just be my natural voice. I don't know.
You sound like a person to me, not a robot.
You're not a bot. I think so.
But who knows?
All right, so I think, I can see some people in the comments saying they weren't aware that there are insurgent armies in Burma. There are around 24 insurgent armies in Burma. There's been a civil war which has been going on there since 1948. It's currently the longest running civil war in the world. So it's incredibly messy, and there's not very many alliances between those 24 different factions as well. So it's very chaotic. So there's, like I said, there's kind of, very broadly speaking, there's two worlds. So there's the Burma, which we can say, and then there's like the ethnic minority world, right? So according to the census, the official government census, it's around 68%, I think is the number. Ethnic Burmese, and then the rest is ethnic minority. I think realistically, most ethnic minorities dispute that, and it's probably more like 50-50 in terms of ethnic Burmans and then other groups. And where to go from here. And okay, so we should probably talk about Myanmar or Burma, right? So
yeah. A lot of people
yeah.
ask about that frequently.
So,
and I think I've misdirected people because I've always been telling people to call it Myanmar because I was told that represents all the different ethnicities and not just the Burmese. But you have
you're right.
Have a different perspective on that.
Is that it does, but the thing is, so when it was Burma, it was like it was an ethno-nationalist state, right? So the government changed the name to Myanmar in 1989 in an effort to kind of aesthetically show plurality and distance themselves from their ethno-nationalist policies they had been pursuing for a long time. But that ethno-nationalism remains. So a lot of minorities and a lot of anti-government Burmese people as well don't recognize that name change. And because of my experiences with minorities, I always use Burma. I mean, what lately people are going with Myanmar more and more. You can if you want. It's not a big issue. It's not a big sticking point with me anyway.
Okay, so either or. I guess it depends on.
In Vietnam, we just use Myanmar.
Myanmar, yeah, that's like
Myanmar.
the official name. Okay, well, regardless of what we call it, I know that the history of it's pretty sad. I mean, it's just a lot of exploitation. The British colonized. You want to kind of go through a little bit of that, just and Aung San's revolution. I don't know how much we need to compress it. There's a lot to.
Should we need like a page now to draw?
I don't think that part. Should we? Is it
Maybe
complicated? I could do that.
The different groups that are fighting the government, we could get the old.
All right. Well, when we start getting into that, I will. If I feel like it gets too complicated, but just spin us through the basic history.
Yeah. I guess I just want to start with talking about the ethnic minorities, because I think this will be quite interesting to a lot of your audience, particularly you, EJ. Because do you know James C. Scott, the writer?
I'm drawing a blank on what they've written, but I'm certainly familiar with the name.
So he wrote a book called The Art of Not Being Governed, an Anarchist History on South.
Zomia, the Zomia book, right?
Zomia is a big. So Scott's book is like very heavily based on Burma. So Zomia is this. It's not a term that Scott came up with. Somebody else came up with it. I don't remember who. But it's that mountain range that spans from the whole Himalayas and mid-Himalayas. So from like northern India all the way to northern.
I gotta rewind that real quick. Get the name. Forgot to get the name. Or.
Yeah, when we start getting that, I will. If I feel like it gets too complicated, but just spin us through the basic history.
Yeah. I guess I just want to start with talking about the ethnic minorities, because I think this will be quite interesting to a lot of your audience, particularly you, EJ. Because do you know James C. Scott, the writer?
James C. Scott.
I'm drawing a blank on what they've written, but I'm certainly familiar with the name.
So he wrote a book called The Art of Not Being Governed, an Anarchist History on South.
Zomia, the Zomia book, right?
Zomia is a big. So Scott's book is like very heavily based on Burma. So Zomia is this. It's not a term that Scott came up with. Somebody else came up with it. I don't remember who. But it's that mountain range that spans from the whole Himalayas and mid-Himalayas. So from like northern India all the way to northern Vietnam, there's this huge mountain range, right?
Yep.
Okay. So in Zomia, there are these. So in this mountain range, there are people who live there. You can call them mountain. People call them hill tribes. I don't like that name. The best we can really say is mountain people who are, culturally, economically, ethnically, whatever, very different from the valley people below. Luna, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There's quite a few groups in Vietnam, right?
Yeah. The Hmong, the Hmong,
the Thai people too.
Particularly in Sapa, right?
So
it's these kind of people we're talking about. And so like the kind of narrative surrounding these people historically has kind of been that like civilization, state building has always happened in the valleys, and it just never reached the distant people in the hills, right? Like that's a general conception that people have, right? But Scott argues that the mountains have always actually been like a safe haven for groups who were living in the lowlands to escape persecution, bondage, or absorption into those flatland empires. So like the Burmese Empire, Siam. I can't remember the name of the Vietnamese ones. I'm sorry. So groups would kind of run to the mountains to escape, bondage and servitude. So it's not that civilization didn't reach them, but they were actively seeking to escape it.
I see.
So this is kind of these are the kind of people we're talking about. A lot of the ethnic minorities in Burma are these kind of people, right? So there's always been this kind of hostility between the lowland people and the highland people, right?
I see.
So that's kind of important to bear in mind.
Interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, like you mentioned, just getting onto Burma. Burma was a British colony, and the British didn't care much for the Burmese, it is safe to say. And of course, they gave preferential treatment to their ethnic minorities, particularly the Karen and the Kachin, as part of the divide and rule tactics. Very classic. And actually, Burma was part of British India until the Indian independence movement started picking up steam, and then they separated it, just to be sure. And so the story really gets going of modern Burma.
It's right there by
Japan
Bangladesh.
invades British Burma in 1942. And many ethnic minorities joined the British against the Japanese, particularly the Kachin and the Karen. And a fairly large contingent of Burmese independence movement people initially sided with Japan, but many of them were communists. And as you might expect, it didn't take long for these groups to become, disillusioned with the Japanese. And then most of them switched sides and went underground in support of the British. And so the Japanese get pushed out, and this is when General Aung San comes into the picture. And you've heard of him, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Aung San Suu Kyi's dad, and he's like the father of the country, is what they call him, right?
Yeah, so he actually founded co-founded the Communist Party Burma, but he left shortly before World War One, and he was a really key member of the independence movement and had done all that side switching. So Aung San becomes a transitional leader during independence. And
let me hear that again. Let me hear the name. Let me hear the name. Hold on.
Comes into the picture, and you've heard of him, right?
Yep. Aung San
Yeah.
Suu Kyi's dad, and he's like the father of the country, is what they call him, right?
Let me see.
Movement people initially sided with Japan, but many of them were communists. And as you might expect, it didn't take long for these groups to become, disillusioned with the Japanese. And then most of them switched sides and went underground in support of the British. And so the Japanese get pushed out, and this is when General Aung San comes into the picture. And you've heard of him, right?
Yep.
Aung San.
Aung San Suu Kyi's dad, and he's like the father of the country, is what they call him, right?
Yeah, so he actually founded co-founded the Communist Party Burma, but he left shortly before World War One, and he was a really key member of the independence movement and had done all that side switching. So Aung San becomes a transitional leader during independence, and in 1946 he negotiates independence with the British, and he arranges this agreement called the Panglong Agreement, which guarantees federalism for a number of ethnic minorities. And this is really, really important, the Panglong Agreement in 1946. And he also had a very diverse cabinet with a lot of ethnic minority representation. And so this was kind of optimistic times in Burma. And then he was assassinated in 1947, along with a few members of his cabinet. There's a lot of conspiracy theories as to who done it, but we're not sure. But so then UNU takes power, who was a good friend of Aung San, but we can kind of skip over UNU a little bit. But in brief, once UNU took over, the Panglong Agreement was out the window, and federalism was not going to happen anymore. And this really pissed off a lot of ethnic minority groups.
So this is
who
really
then started their own
interesting.
insurgent armies. And,
So pause it. So General Aung San, working on the liberation or Burma's independence, he was assassinated in 1947. Burma's been having a civil war amongst a bunch of different factions. So basically up to 24 different militant groups. There's 24. And they've been having a civil war since 1948. So there's been this whole split, it looks like. There's probably a lot of agreement amongst many groups. So far we got General Aung assassinated in 1949. Burma been in civil war since 1948. So I'm gonna unpause it. I just wanted to say that.
To fight the state, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna just skip through my cheat sheet over the UNU stuff. Okay, so the UNU eras. I'm trying to only focus on the very important stuff here, so sorry. So in 62, Ne Win takes power in a coup, and he kicks UNU out. And Ne Win is certainly much more radical than UNU and much more hostile to ethnic minorities. And so Ne Win was kind of vaguely leftist, but really he was a Burmese nationalist and an isolationist. So, rents were abolished. There were huge campaigns against illiteracy and stuff like that, centralized economic planning, but it was all centered around ethnic nationalism. So Burman ethnic nationalism. And so the state was incredibly isolated, not friendly with NATO or the Soviets, and actively fighting China in a proxy war in the north of the country because China had taken to supporting the Communist Party Burma. And yeah, just to underscore, like, this era was so isolated for the country. Like, it was a pariah state, basically. Nobody really knew what was going on there. And the leadership were deeply, deeply protectionist. And this becomes very important to what's going on today. I just want to see if there are any questions, if I'm going over stuff too fast.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit confused about some of the power. So how did Aung San lose? Because I know that Aung San's like very much kind of considered a hero there, or at least that's the impression I got when I was there. Like, I went to his office, which I guess is like a little restaurant now, but I remember going into his office and there were people were very like respectful and they talked about him and stuff.
I can see he's considered a hero in Burma because he's the one that was really pushing the whole independence for Burma. But yeah, assassinated in 1947. It's really interesting.
And I know that, like, so then it went to Ne Win for like decades, and then there was a second kind of revolution. But like, what exactly transpired for Aung San to transition to Ne Win? Like,
well, there was sorry, I kind of skipped over it a bit. That was like the UNU era. So UNU was kind of your classic third worldist, non-aligned movement leader. So he kind of similar to U space NU, Do you know? I mean, this is kind of a forgotten era of world history, but the Third World Movement, and I'm not talking about Maoism here. I'm talking about the Third World Movement was quite a big thing.
I don't know much about that.
So
you want to give us the bullet points?
Yeah, it's not really my area of speciality, but that was a non-aligned movement. So it was people or leaders of countries who said, we're not necessarily going the communists or the capitalists, the NATO, whatever, but somewhere. So Nehru,
didn't Cuba?
Yes, actually.
Didn't Cuba have something to do with that? Yeah, Cuba kind of like led that movement for a while, right? And then
a lot of them were left.
Sort of screwed it up.
I think it was screwed up by a lot of other factors, but
I don't remember the details on that, but okay. So now, interestingly, it seems like all of these people were at least nominally socialist. I didn't know, for instance, that Aung San had anything to do with the Communist Party, so that's interesting to learn.
UNU is also like.
I was going to say Aung San fell out with the Communist Party quite severely, though, after World War.
Really? Why was that?
Oh, I can't remember. I think it was about tactics.
Okay.
About we should not have a fight with the British, or we should try and negotiate with the British. I think.
Do you think he was maybe more involved with communism, like just because that happened to be the
style at the time? Yeah.
It was mainly like, I can see it could have been like some just extremism between people, and it creates complications. And what happens is like like actual people that take action or actual leaders, they start letting go even of labels and stuff. It's not like if they're letting go of ideas or other stuff, but sometimes they will let go of a certain set dogmatic way of thinking, but it doesn't mean they leave any ideas behind. But let's see, let's go on with this. Let's see what happens, because there's complications. It's like, humans are complicated. We don't know how to evolve, or we don't know how to strategize, or there's a lot of complications in between, and people butt heads, and
yeah. I don't know. I'm just curious. Okay. So, but Ne Win was also like nominally. I know that Ne Win sort of combined socialism with like a bunch of other stuff, right? So it wasn't like explicitly Marxist-Leninist, was it? I remember reading about this a long time ago, but
it was kind of similar to like, I don't know, like what was it? NASA, like kind of similar to NASA. Like you take some elements of some leftist elements and some anti-colonial elements, and you kind of combine them in a big soup. But a big element of Ne Win's kind of ideology was this protectionism, and that's a really important factor.
Protection. So so that's what makes him a nationalist. So that's really interesting. But so basically nationalists or fascists or ultra-nationalist groups. Fascism is actually ultra-nationalist. So sometimes even fascist groups will take left-leaning ideas, economics and stuff. They work with that. There's a fascist identity or nationalistic identity, whether it's ethnic or maybe religion, depending what they choose. Doesn't really have. It's not really about economics. It's about like ultra nationalism, some form of patriotism, let's say. So
I see. Yeah. And I okay. Can you, one last question about Ne Win? I do want to get into the modern stuff, but I just, there's a lot of information, and I don't know if it's true or false, but is it true that Ne Win was like kind of out there and made a lot of really weird decisions and had like fortune, like that's the impression that I get from reading like Western accounts of it, like Wikipedia and all that. That he was like, he had like fortune tellers, and he was making all these like bizarre decisions and just really fucked the country up a lot. I don't know if that's true or not though. So
so you heard about that. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I can get onto some of the weird religious stuff that the military get into.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to.
How many ethnic minorities over there in Burma?
So I think today there are 111 indigenous languages recognized by the government.
Wow.
So quite a lot.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Right.
Even China, the huge
what do you say,
nation, they
110?
also have like 100 or something.
Yeah.
Like
so
Burma.
Okay. 100. I'll write it down. 110. You said 110? 110. Indigenous languages. Indigenous people and languages. Languages in Burma. Okay, let's press play.
It's like teeny tiny compared to the size, but like they also have the same kind of. Wow.
Yeah.
But back to Ne Win though. Like what? So you want? Yeah, I think I would be interested to learn like what his basic, because he was there for a long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like he had a lot of impact. So I guess if you wanted to go a little more detail about him, that might be appropriate.
Well, I can just talk about that kind of era because this is also the Opium Triangle era, which is quite significant.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry, the Golden Triangle, the opium trade. Yeah. There were a lot of rebellions ongoing throughout the Ne Win period. This is when fighting was very much at its most intense. And so, this was like an incredibly messy time with all of these other rebel armies with, constant side switching by different groups, battalions breaking off from larger armies, internal coups, blah, blah, blah. And then you would have these huge narco armies like rising and falling all over the place. And there's a great book, if anyone wants to do any further reading, called Burma in Revolt, Opium and Insurgency by Bertil Lintner, which I highly recommend.
What's it called? Opium in Revolt?
Burma in Revolt, Opium
Burma
and
in Revolt.
Insurgency. Yeah. So yeah, this is a peak of the Golden Triangle era, which is the mass production of opium in the Burma, Thai, Lao border triangle region, which is, this is actually another story aside from the whole story of making modern Burma, but it does play a big role. And so a lot of these insurgent ethnic minority armies were founded on opium money.
Wow.
And so this is we could get a little bit into Kunsar. Have you heard of Kunsar?
No.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so Kunsar was like Escobar before Escobar. He was
really?
the world's biggest drug dealer for quite some time. Yeah, KHUN space SA. And he was an ethnic Shan, or he was half ethnic Shan, half Han Chinese, I think. And he rose to become the commander of the Hmong Tai army, who were supposedly a Shan, which is an ethnic group, supposedly a Shan revolutionary group, but realistically they were massive drug traffickers. And at his peak, which would have been in the late 80s, so around 1988, he probably had a better army than the Burma army, and he probably had more money too. He moved around 50% of the world's heroin. So sorry, 50% of the world's opium came from Kunsar.
Wow.
That period.
That's massive.
So he actually once publicly offered to sell his entire opium crop directly to the Australian government wholesale, and they said no.
So they could use it for medicine, I guess.
No, because like they were doing this supposedly like opium eradication programs and stuff.
Oh, I see.
Like, I'll just sell it to
buy
you.
it from me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
That's
yeah,
incredible. Okay.
Interestingly, somebody who was high up in the Thai government at the time once drunkenly told me that Kunsar was a CIA asset. But who knows? So where should we go from here? Oh yeah, so yeah, the US and the CIA were heavily involved in the Golden Triangle drug trade.
I'm vaguely, I don't know the ins and outs,
actually,
but
my dad was in Laos in the 80s.
Luna's dad did some opium while he was in Laos.
He used like san. That's like Laos. They didn't have san. Because they don't have seed. So like he usually like use san to shake.
He would buy opium with salt from the Lao people. So if you want to learn more about that, you can watch Luna's interview with her dad on her channel. No, I'm not Brazilian. I don't know where anybody got that impression, but I'm not. I am from the United States of America, embarrassingly enough. Okay, so Ne Win, like you want to just give us the footnote?
Okay, so let's get tenure. To the. I mean, Ne Win's tenure is basically spent doing these kind of vaguely leftist social welfare programs in terms of state building and strengthening that imperial core of Burma, right? And really pushing this Burmese ethno-nationalism. And so then these ethnic minority groups who opposed this kind of ethnic nationalism were really heavily targeted in very brutal ways. So villages burnt down, I mean just lands pillaged, and we can talk maybe a little bit later because this kind of stuff is still going on, so we can kind of get into the ethnic treatment of the Burmese army against the ethnic minorities, but it's pretty horrific. I mean, all of the horrific counterinsurgency stuff you can imagine, they did. That all kind of really took.
So look at this. I'll pause it. So you see Ne Win up here, right here. Ne Win, Burmese ethnic nationalist military commander. You go down lower. Over here, Ne Win again says vaguely socialist, but ethno-nationalist. So that's what I'm talking about. With fascism, it's not really based on economics. It's more based on power for a particular thing. And then you use ultranationalism or certain stories and talks to build a particular type of weird pride, kind of like with Mussolini. Fascist Mussolini in Italy was bringing up like their history, like of the Roman Empire and everything. He was creating a particular type of ethnic nationalism too. So they use these things in these stories. It doesn't matter really. Like people like literally always think that capitalism is like fascist or something. Capitalism is capitalism, but fascists will use capitalism depending if their particular group of people has the majority of the power. So if they have the majority of power, they will support that system, pretty much. Or they will want to fix the system, try to gain power, and then use certain socialistic economic ideas to sustain themselves. So yeah, you can see how right here, even with nationalism, can use some leftist or socialist concepts, but that so yeah, they'll use any system, socialist or capitalist, basically what it comes down to. They're just the main thing that what is fascism is ultra nationalism, like heavy tone patriotism, and it creates a problem with the rest of society, and it can have bad outcomes, whether persecuting this person, this group, or that group, just like with Rohingya people in Burma, or any other situation in other countries that happened through what fascism did. Because fascism always brings this very aggressive level of situation in their politics, because it's ultra nationalism. Now on pause.
So it was like socialism for the Burmese nationality, and then everybody else got treated terribly. It's kind of the.
I guess I don't really like using the word socialism for this. Because,
well, I mean, I guess not socialism, but like social programs.
Social programs, sure.
Social development, I guess, or infrastructure development,
something like that.
Although I also know that there were.
It gets too complicated. It's like the purity fucking bullshit, you know. Like, who cares? Like, just call it for what it is, you know. It has nothing. These things have nothing to do with socialism. Like, socialism is like literally like like with of multiple economic theories, you know, that comes under socialism. Oh, it's not really socialistic. But yeah, you know, fascism is not socialist. It's far from socialistic, actually, because socialism has to be literally intersectional. I mean, it's a working class theory, or the people's theory, you know, of common ownership and a democratic society. Okay, so yeah, it's true. It doesn't match. It can't match. But they'll use, I guess, socialistic. Luna said, "What do we call it?" Luna goes, "What word could we use?" Like when they were trying to figure out what words to use, she goes, "Socialistic." It's like, maybe that is probably better. Socialistic. It's not really socialist. Maybe, yeah, I guess it's right. But I usually don't hurt my brain over it. It's just fascist. Like, you know, I'm a socialist myself. I'm total fucking socialist, wanting a communist society, but I don't boggle my head by it too much. You know, I just call it for what it is. There's fascists. They're fascists. They use this. They use that. That's simple. Keep it simple. Like all this worry shit, humans making things too complicated. I don't know.
Pitfalls with that, like they
weren't very good. They weren't necessarily good at it, and they didn't have a great deal. Well, this is the thing. They were so isolationist, right? Is that they weren't really trading and stuff like that. So they weren't able to really develop as they would like to.
And that the Ne Win regime ended because he died, and then the military just kept controlling it.
No.
Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
So this brings us on to
okay.
This brings us on to 1988. And there was a huge uprising in Burma. And what's happening now, people are comparing to 88 in a major way. So this also happens to be the time that Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the late General Aung San's daughter, returns from abroad to care for her sick mother. Yeah.
2 U's. I always forget that.
Okay. And
okay.
So she's a pretty big name already because of her parents, and she gets involved in the democracy movement, which is brutally crushed by Ne Win's military. And so this is commonly referred to as the 88 Uprising. I just want to be clear, this is because it was in 1988. So you see a lot of 88 symbols, and it's not a Nazi thing, just so you know. If you see 88,
I see.
It's a democracy thing.
Oh, that's right.
Right. Okay.
So basically, Ne Win
this was so what was this? What was this essentially like? Just a liberal-ish kind of movement? It wasn't really.
Yeah. There were a lot of
grounded
leftists.
ideologically.
There were a lot of leftists, but it was a broad coalition for sure of like liberal democracy, socialist.
Even Indian Vietnamese, we consider that's kind of liberal style, not real like communist.
Right. Was this a federation kind of movement? Like,
no, this was not a movement to get federalism back into the country at that time. Not really when it started.
Okay, so how did that break down with the ethnic minorities and the Burma majority? Or
yeah, it's a good question, because so this is one thing I really want to state, which is that like Burman politics and ethnic minority politics are two completely different worlds.
Wow.
And that's really important to remember. So the 88 Uprising didn't have a tremendous effect on the ethnic minority armed struggle, and the same is also true of today. So far, and it looks like it might be a little bit different this time, but we'll get there in the timeline.
I see.
Yeah. So if I could carry on a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ne Win basically is forced to resign due to this uprising, and that's when he was replaced by that faceless military council, the junta that you refer to. So this becomes now the junta era. And the junta, and we call the junta the Tamadar, and that's what we call the Burmese Army. So the Tamadar is the official name for the army of the Union of Myanmar or whatever. So the Tamadar, is it okay if I use that term from now on?
Yes. So the Tamadar
is the army.
Is it Tamada? I just need to know so I can.
It's actually TAT, but the second T is kind of silent. So TATMA.
TAT.
Should I just type it? Yeah, I'll type it.
Sure. I just want to get it right because I'm making a.
There you go. I did it in the private chat.
I see. Tamadar.
Yeah.
I see. Tamadar equals the junta military regime.
Yeah. And today you still say Tamadar to talk about the military.
Okay.
Vietnam was busy fighting Pol Pot at that time, so.
Couldn't help out. It's okay. Well, Thailand's in the way.
Well, we're gonna because there's been some controversy and some things going on with Vietnam. We'll talk about that later. So if you're curious about that, just stand by. I'm just telling the audience. Don't say that. God damn it.
I'm sorry. Can't stop it.
Makes me cringe whenever I hear that. Okay.
What?
Okay.
Military still referred to as Tamadar to this day. Okay. I'm up to speed with the notes.
Right.
All right.
And so basically when the junta took over and Ne Win was booted out, they abandoned this kind of vaguely leftist ideas we were talking about before. And so it basically just became a completely crony mafia system where the military controlled the entire economy and everyone involved in that control scrapes money from wherever they can, right?
Okay.
And so during this period, Suu Kyi is put under
that just means
house
take
arrest,
control of the economy,
which is a bit on and off. And she ends up being elevated to this kind of saintly figure in the Burma democracy movement and in the Western world. So the Western press adore her. They have always adored her. And they really helped her kind of build this persona of this peaceful, very divine in many sense, because she was very big into Buddhism and she supposedly meditated silently for many hours a day and all of this stuff. So with help of the Western media, they kind of built up Suu Kyi into this, really saintly figure of worship,
Yeah, I mean, I know that, like, I remember around 2012 or 13 or whatever when I don't remember. It was just so freaking dramatic the way it was covered in the. I don't know if it was actually this dramatic, but like, didn't she? I guess we're jumping. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but didn't she like jump up on a wall with a megaphone and like address a massive crowd? And it was like
I think it was on the back of a truck, something like that.
Okay, yeah, I just remember. Yeah, it was like really.
Oh man.
Balthazar.
I gotta use the restroom. I'll be back.
Spoilers in the comments. Come on.
No spoilers. But during this time, I'm sorry, did you say that she was somehow imprisoned or like
house arrest?
Somehow persecuted? House arrest. Okay, she was under house arrest during the junta.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's now still no house arrest, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, she is now. Well, yeah, you're getting spoilers too, Luna.
So basically, I'll just skip ahead a little bit. So eventually, there was a lot of international pressure and a lot of agitating domestically, and eventually, she was released in 2010. Which ended up leading towards this move to democracy, which culminated in 2016 when she wins the election and becomes state councillor of Myanmar. And I was in Kachin for those elections, and people were in Kachin, which is a very ethnic minority far north of the country by China. So people were very optimistic. The ethnic minority people I was with were very optimistic. She came to Kachin during the campaign. She gave a speech wearing traditional Kachin dress, which is a big deal. And even the Kachin Independence Army sent her this 2-meter-high birthday card signed by a lot of the leaders. So this is a kind of optimistic time again.
That was in 2016. She became the
state council.
State council. Okay.
Yeah. So there was this weird thing where she legally couldn't become president or prime minister because at first it was because you can't be the head of state if you are married to a foreigner, which she was. She married an English guy, and then he died, and so they changed the law.
Yeah, he died at like 99, didn't he?
Yeah, so they changed the law to like, if you have foreign members of your family, so her kids have English passports.
Oh my god!
So yeah,
right.
But they just did a loophole around that.
Right, I see.
Okay, so where were we? Right, and so like I was saying, like Burmese politics had been separate from ethnic minority politics for such a long time. So, I mean, when Suu Kyi got in there was this optimism that some of the rebel groups could be brought into the political world instead of the insurgent one. And, I mean, you can see, I guess you know how it goes downhill from here.
Oh shit! I think you're gone already. You probably didn't hear me.
But I don't know exactly, because this is where
I'm doing a thing on Burma right now.
Actually, to be honest, because I don't know. Like I remember there was a lot of talk that she was going to have like this federalist.
Damn, I missed you, Brody.
Spelling correction. I know there was a lot of talk because this is when I was in Southeast Asia at this time, and I was paying much more attention to it than ever before. But I still didn't really understand what was going on because it was so convoluted. But I know the liberal capitalist press said a lot that she was going to kind of like unite the divide of all the ethnic minorities, and this is when they were talking about Rohingya a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to bring that into the mix now. Because I remember I'm just trying to remember like the news coverage that I saw, and it was bits and pieces. And I know that it was like Rohingya became like the representative ethnic minority that the Western press was talking about a lot. And they were, obviously they were treated horribly by the Tatmadaw, I now know to call them. And then there was like this idea that Aung San Suu Kyi was going to bring hope to the ethnic minorities essentially. And by the way, thank you Pancakes and Hammers for the super chat. I appreciate it. So you want to I don't know where that's kind of like I think a lot of us who have been trying to pay attention and failing, that's kind of like the soup that we have in our brains. Maybe you could crystallize some of those pieces for us.
So the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya people really picked up steam just before Suu Kyi got into power, and that was truly horrific. It was and it's still ongoing to a large degree, one of the worst genocides that's well, it's probably the worst in my lifetime. Thinking about it, maybe I'm being ignorant. But in terms of attacks on ethnic minorities, the Rohingya suffered far more than anybody else, I have to say.
The ethnic cleanses started shortly before Aung San Suu Kyi took office. Is that what you said? Okay.
Why are they being treated like? Why have they been treated like that? Because of their belief, because of their looking, or what?
They are seen as like not even okay. So there's like this conception among Burman ethno-nationalists that even ethnic minorities like the Karen or the Kachin or the Shan, even they are still members of Myanmar as they see it, right? With the Rohingya, no, they are really seen as something subhuman by a lot of ethno-nationalists in Burma. And a lot of some of this comes from religious sentiments. So there was some very...
So basically, it's really not about religion. It has to do with the ethnic. It was portrayed that it had to do with religion almost. But maybe there was a bunch of people using Buddhism. There's probably certain forms of Buddhist fascism, but it has nothing to do with Buddhism, though, of course, like anything. But yeah, that's really interesting. So, wow, they're like a really looked down upon as a people itself. I wonder if they're indigenous to that area too.
Nasty monks who whipped up a lot of sectarian hatred, and
the monks did, yeah.
And then clashes kind of started on a very local level, and then the military went in and were just incredibly brutal. But again, I have to say, like, my speciality is in the north and the east of the country, and this all happened in the west of the country. So this is actually, the thing that most people know most about, I actually know the least about, ironically.
I see.
I can't speak too much on it. But I think it is fairly well known. And I think people's general conception of the Rohingya genocide is correct.
Right. Okay. But now, and then, like, so this is where I want to be careful and make sure we understand what's going on. Aung San Suu Kyi, the Aung San Suu Kyi administration didn't initiate it.
No.
But did they have any involvement in it after Aung San Suu Kyi took office?
So this is a debate, right? I mean, so this is where we kind of get into opinion, and I can give you my opinion, but I want to be clear that that's my opinion.
Yeah.
So basically, I think that Suu Kyi, once she got into power, she did continue this kind of Burmese Buddhist nationalism that we had seen in Burma for decades. And I just think she brought a democratic veneer to that nationalism. And she did nothing to stop the wars against the ethnic minorities and the genocide of the Rohingya. And defending the genocide at The Hague in 2019 was absolutely the final straw. So there were charges at The Hague of ethnic cleansing, and Suu Kyi went to defend the Tamadar, which is absurd and sickening.
Wow. See, because I thought that in my mind this whole time we've been talking, I've been thinking Tamadar versus Aung San Suu Kyi, and they were like very much opposed to each other. But you're saying that Aung San Suu Kyi actually defended the Tamadar at the Hague?
Could this explain why it was easier for her to have some power or get democratically elected, but then maybe something happened and then the junta just turned on her? Wow, dude, this is like a trip. So let's hear more of this, actually. This is really interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
So she defended the actions of the Tamadar. Or she said it didn't happen or something like that.
Well, why would she do that? What kind of relationship? I mean, because it feels like the Tamadar is just constantly wanting to get rid of her. So I don't understand what the motivation for that would be.
Well, I mean, her defenders will say, like, oh, she's got a gun to her head. She has no real power. She can't really do anything. And there is some truth to that. I mean, the Tamadar still maintained control of there was no civilian control over the military. One thing, which is, significant. And she did lack, they control, the Tamadar still had their fingers in a lot of institutions and a lot of private business. So she didn't have a tremendous amount of control over the country. However, again, in my opinion, she was willing to, sacrifice her life being under house arrest for decades for the Burmese people.
Yeah.
She obviously wasn't willing to make that same sacrifice for non-Burmese people who were supposedly part of her country, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I see. So it started making a little bit of sense. So it's basically kind of a Burmese nationalist neoliberal. I don't know how. Like what are the politics of Aung San Suu Kyi?
Neoliberal.
Because it sounds a little bit.
You mean liberal?
That's interesting. I mean, definitely since neoliberal is the word. Since Burma.
Yeah, that's what it sounds. The reason I say that is because it reminds me a lot of like the DNC in the USA in certain ways, because like, they'll oppose Trump, but they're not really going to do anything.
I got to stop this. Or pause this for a moment. Neoliberalism, literally means like full on free market or with no regulation, no hindrance, no government regulations. Where liberalism is literally like it's capitalism, but there is some control, some regulation in there within the market. And then neoliberalism is a concept where they try to land into where complete freaking no control, or they want it that way, or that's what neoliberals promote. And that lands under like with what some Republicans will talk about, like full on, just like no government intervention, and or right libertarians, right? I say right libertarians because there's left libertarians also, but liberal and neoliberalism are like literally two different things. One has some subtle control of the market, and the other just asking for full on unhinged, no regulation. That's neoliberalism. So if the junta, right now, I'm going to say this: if the junta controls the market, that's really not neoliberalism. That's more lands into would it be liberalism? Okay. This is a thing that people need to understand. It's really weird how people throw around words all over the place, right? Even people like this guy, American Johnson. I like this guy a lot. Okay, it's not to talk shit, but even this guy, and then the guy is interviewing, because you have what you call like people parroting stuff without truly understanding what they're saying. They're parroting each other. They think they know what they're talking about, and then they repeat. Parroting meaning repeating terms the way each other are saying it. So it's like what? That's why I said liberalism. But then they come out saying, "Oh, it's neoliberalism." I go, "How? The junta is in full, like total control of the market." I don't know. It might not even be liberalism. So, we have to really understand these things, and we have to really understand what neoliberalism is. Liberalism is a form of capitalism, but it's not unchecked. It's not such unchecked capitalism. Neoliberalism is what some Republicans promote, and what a lot of right libertarians will promote. It's kind of like that oxymoronic anarchist thing, ANCAP. That's neoliberalism pretty much, but ANCAP, that's like an oxymoronic term because it's an undemocratic situation. It's not horizontal. So not all individuals have a voice. Only the elite has a voice. The elite on the top. See? Whether they create a capitalist guild, or if there's a government, an elite with the government, a bunch of capitalists becoming lobbyists and buying politicians. So either way, neoliberalism is like unchecked. And people conflating that word with different things like that, it kind of throws a lot of shit off, and then it's like hard to understand what's what. Call it liberalism. It is actually more liberalism, but if we analyze these things, we can probably pinpoint it more what it is too. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. So I'm gonna unpause it now, or I won't talk too much.
to actually like
Mhm.
restore, you know, the they're not going to actually like try to help with the immigration
Because anyway,
crisis in a
they're
meaningful
both
way, or
white.
right? Yeah, it's like white supremacist DNC versus white supremacist
Just
fascist.
different masks,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sounds a little bit. I just,
Oh my gosh.
and I don't know if that's is there any accuracy to that comparison at all, or
And not to be honest, you're a little bit off. A little bit off.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit
You know,
off.
so
Guide me back then. Guide me
Okay,
back.
So
okay,
he's
let's go.
he literally says white supremacist DNC. I guess because they have some socialistic type ideas of certain groups or certain ideas. Remember, they're totally controlling the fucking market. The junta is like full on control. But we really don't know exactly how that works. I have to like myself look into that. If I look into that closer, I can actually see what it is, and I can actually tell you what it is, like what it is, like and then explain it, you know. But right now I don't know exactly how it is. We're getting an idea, like we're all like it's like a mixture of different ideas going on here. So yeah. So he goes DNC. I don't know why he says DNC, because the socialistic part. Because dude, like literally, there's literal fascists that hold literally socialistic ideas. I'll give you an example. There was a group here that existed here in the United States. I don't know where you guys are watching. If you're from here in the United States or from somewhere else. Here in the United States, there's an alt-right movement, right? It's still around. They're alt-right. And the alt-right movement also had a group called TWP. TWP means Traditionalist Workers' Party. They call themselves traditionalists because they're like want a traditional marriage, you know, anti-gay marriage. Or like they're called the Traditionalist Workers' Party, and they're part of the alt-right. And that group was led by Matt Heimbach, one of the big alt-right personalities next to Richard Spencer. Okay, these guys exist. Okay, they've been around for a while. A lot of people think they were capitalistic because the capitalist voice was more louder. They were trying to speak to the majority because the majority holds that power. And then also when you see more people promoting something, they will talk to that crowd more. But yes, there is socialistic thoughts that fascists hold. Not hard to believe. So instead of saying DNC, like DNC white supremacy, it didn't make sense. It said white white supremacy fascism, and then they say DNC white supremacy. But yeah, this is a country, don't get me wrong, this is a country with problems, and it is totally a white supremacist. It's a colonized country. But that type of conflation was interesting because he was probably, I don't know, people, like I said, people worry about things too much. Like just save for, you know, I don't have to worry about it, dude. Like I don't worry about it, really. I guess I don't, because I think I know that I can just conversate with people and explain things, and people will understand. Like, oh yeah, you know. So yeah, I will compare it with TWP. Instead of DNC, it's it makes it too confusing, and then it blurs the line of what is a fascist. A fascist is total patriot, very nationalistic, ultra nationalistic. So that's what that's what a fascist is. Later on in other videos or other streams, I'll explain this stuff too even more. It'll even get more clear. Like this Burma thing is really good. And people can see this, and in a way, people can learn a lot from this thing too. You know, so remember, somebody talking about socialism or socialistic could literally be a fascist infiltrator in your space too. It just depends if you know how to catch them, if you have an eye for it, if you have a mind to see through it, people. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I work. You know, this is what I do anyways. I'm anti-fascist, so I study all this. I learn all this stuff. So for that's what I do. Let's press play.
Basically, like, remember I said that the Tamadar or the leadership of the Tamadar are extremely protectionist, right?
Yeah.
So think about this. Suu Kyi opens up the country to foreign markets. So to international companies coming in, building sweatshops, building dams, mining.
I was there for a lot of that. I saw a lot of that. Yeah.
It was really sudden, and it had a tremendous effect on people's lives.
Let me rewind that a bit.
Can I chime in and ask another question? Because like I moved to Vietnam and
right?
Yeah.
So think about this. Suu Kyi opens up the country to foreign markets. So to international companies coming in, building sweatshops, building dams, mining.
I was there for a lot of that. I saw a lot of that. Yeah.
It was really sudden, and it had a tremendous effect on people's lives, actually.
Can I chime in and ask another question? Because like I moved to Vietnam in 2013, and this was when a lot of the people I was meeting in Vietnam had like just visited Burma, Myanmar, and they were talking about it like because it was just opening up, I guess around 2011, 2012. And they were saying that like things were changing so fast, but that like, because I know that they didn't even have the internet until very, very late, right? Like most people didn't even have access to the internet until like 2012 or something. Is that true?
In a lot of places, they still don't. Yeah, that is true.
Wow. Sure.
In selected areas, you could get like some kind of signal, but yeah. Like in
but they were telling me that like you'd have to go and get things like, I don't know if this is true or not. That's why I'm asking, because you never can trust these like backpacker legends or whatever, but they were saying that like if they want to get a document copy, they'd have to get somebody with like a typewriter to type it up and shit like that. I don't like that the technology was just really behind. So
I mean, it was a
why was that, and how did it advance so quickly, I guess?
Yeah, so like I said before, it was a pariah state. I mean, something like North Korea, you could imagine stories like that outside of Pyongyang, right? It wouldn't be surprising. They weren't doing any trade. They were under complete sanctions. So there was no import, no export. So that's just how life was. I used to live with a few people who grew up in Burma, and they told me about growing up there in the early 90s, and just horrific, especially if you're poor.
But it wasn't censorship, was it? Was it like you can't have the internet, or was it just like there just is no internet? It's not a matter of it being.
I think a bit of both. I mean, it was because of the sanctions. I think was a big factor behind that.
I get it. Okay.
Who put the sanction on Myanmar? That's
everyone.
Well, they were like, what was the specific reason? Just because of human rights abuses against the ethnic minorities, or what was it that the international community was upset about?
Yeah, it was human rights abuses mostly. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
And not kind of playing ball, not this kind of protectionism is really what it comes down to. Let's be honest. Not letting foreign companies invest and stuff like that.
Right. Because I know I went there to do some work for a neoliberal NGO, and it was just like, it was like the Wild West in terms of just so many people from so many places going there to like imperialize.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. I was like meeting like people from every country going to set up like these like startup imperialist NGOs and corporations and factories and stuff. This is around 2016, 2017, something like that.
So EJ, follow me here. Then what would happen if you are the deeply protectionist military who have just left, and you still have all the guns and you still have all the ability to mobilize? What are you going to do?
Well, okay, here's a question.
Yeah.
Why? What's the motivation that the military has for being isolationist like that? Like, what do they stand for?
Well,
because it doesn't feel like they're Marxist Leninists. It doesn't feel like they're. I get that they're ethno-nationalists, but I still don't understand what they're.
It's like Pol Pot.
What do they want? What are they? Yeah. What are their like?
Yeah, there's like outside of the economic.
Well, I mean, they had complete dominion over the country. They had ultimate power in their world, right?
Right.
And that got snatched away from them in a matter of years.
Sure.
It happened so quickly. And I mean, now we're still in the opinions game. I mean, in my opinion, I think this is a real reason. Also, just to throw this out there as well, Suu Kyi also surrounded herself with these kind of foreign neoliberal advisors. For example, one guy even quit the British embassy to go and work for her. So, they were so paranoid, spy, that's a big word in Burma whenever I was there, especially with my accent, right? It's spies, there's spies everywhere. Oh, people would like get nervous around me. They're like, are you a spy? Even after the country reopened, people are still talking about spies.
Oh,
so
yeah.
This was that kind of paranoid mindset that had been imposed onto the country, right?
I'm gonna pause that. I don't know if it's a paranoid like mindset. The thing is, Burma is like the target, I guess, for a lot of things, or especially for trade and stuff, maybe even. And Burma is a small country, kind of like Cuba. Like, well, I don't know if the Cuba is like the same size as Burma. I don't look at the size thingy. Burma's small. It's just like Cuba. Cuba's small. You know, you can recognize an outsider like this, like so freaking fast, because all the little towns everywhere, they know each other. It's like a small area, right? So what happens is you can identify something that's like really outsider. It doesn't matter if you know freaking their language or even knowing Spanish so good, like Cuba, like when you be in Cuba, the thing is they'll recognize you, and then they'll suspect that you might be a spy, and that's how they'll catch you. You know, like say if you try to do something, try to do like an overthrow or sneak in and do like some assassination attempt, even smaller countries, you get caught quick. You get caught quick, like, because no matter how good you think you are portraying a culture or speaking Spanish, you're just a fucking outsider. No matter what, you're recognized easily, and paranoia does have play a role in it. And so what happens is people are more watchful, even is more watchful, and it's more crazier in a smaller country. You can't get away that easy, you know. It's just like Cuba. How many assassination attempts were being there was on Fidel Castro? None of them was successful. It's a small damn island. You can't do anything. You can't sneak in. You can't. It's impossible. So yeah, that's the thing. I just wanted to say that. But yeah, paranoia plays a role in it, and especially like with Cuba, people in Cuba were paranoid because there was already a lot of problems happening. I mean, there's sanctions on them right now, or embargoes, like trade blocks against them. So yeah, people are watchful and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then when somebody quits the bloody British embassy to go and work for Suu Kyi, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Oof. So
okay, and so the military is distrustful of the West, and they're kind of just. I want to kind of understand the military's like the mindset of the military. Yeah. They're anti-West, but they're also like ethno-nationalists, and they just want power over the country, and they're not interested. It seems like they're not really that interested in like building
a sovereign nation or something.
Yeah, I think in terms of like infrastructure developments, like stuff like that, like improving the lives of the people, what have you. Like, no, I don't think so. No, it was a total mafia, you know.
So so they just want to keep their power, and they don't want foreigners coming in, and they also don't want because that's another thing that I got the impression of is that before Aung San Suu Kyi, like there was this very anti-foreigner stance of the military. Like it was hard for people to travel there. I know that's true, right? Yeah, it's very difficult to get a visa before the democratic election of Aung San Suu Kyi. Yeah, is that true?
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were incredibly paranoid foreigners. Yeah,
because the infrastructure for tourism was practically non-existent even when I went there. Yeah. It was very not developed in terms of like hotels and Wi-Fi. They didn't have Wi-Fi anywhere. So
I think a lot of the opening up, there was a reason they opened up. I in my opinion, the leadership of the Tamadar, they thought, okay, we can open up, we can have this kind of veneer of democracy, but we can still keep our fingers in all the pies, and we can still keep our cash flows coming in. But then a lot of these foreign started to kind of go around them, right? And then they started to lose their cash flow, and they saw all this wealth being created. Like, we're not. Where's my pie? Like, again, this is still opinion, but this is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Okay.
I think that makes sense too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, we, again, Suu Kyi, she was a real ally of the West, and she was a Western project in many ways, and then so Yeah, I think in my opinion that's why the coup happened, and then I guess we can start to talk about what's going on now in response.
Okay, here.
To the coup,
Okay,
right?
I'm gonna pause this. I'm confused. So
unless you have any more points about
Yeah. Let's get to today. So
no, forget it.
so Aung San Suu Kyi has kind of just been
I thought she was working with
popular.
the junta, and
Is that true?
She got easily
Popular with
elected
at least
or
the Burmese people?
It depends who you talk to. Not among my friends, that's for sure. But my friends are all like communists and anarchists.
Well, yeah.
Very
What about
among
the mainstream?
Among the middle class, she's incredibly popular among like professionals and what have you. She maintains quite a lot of popularity in the rural areas, and you have to remember the communications are not great still. So people in rural areas get most of their news from
Burmese rural areas. You're not talking about ethnic minorities, are you?
Yeah, I'm talking about Burmese.
Okay.
So people still, there's not much, internet in these kind of rural areas. So there's not, the opposition voices are maybe quite few.
Yeah. That was part of the job I was doing, was actually trying to help figure out how to communicate with people who didn't have the internet and like couldn't read and write. It was a very weird job. But so
and you didn't speak Burmese. So.
how is Aung San Suu Kyi received in the metropolitan areas?
So there's quite a lot of, it really depends who you talk to. I think generally her party is very popular, or was very popular. So there were elections, and this is what preempted the coup, is there were elections around the same time as US elections, in which her party, the National League of Democracy, won 82% of the vote, I think it was, which is an absolute landslide, right? Against the USDP, who are the military-backed party. So if we're going to believe, the military-backed party said that these numbers are bullshit, but that's probably true.
This was 2020, right?
Yeah.
Late 2020. So if those numbers are true, 80%, I think if someone could fact check me on that, I would appreciate it. But anyway, she won a huge margin, so that would indicate that the party, at least, is very popular. Was very popular.
I can fact check that real quick. 2020.
And so that was kind of the reason that the military gave for the coup, which is there's no way you can win such a landslide victory.
Yeah, we've got Aung San Suu Kyi versus Tan Thai. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So that would be like 258 seats versus 26 seats.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
so
crazy.
26 divided.
Yeah, and it was a legit election. There was maybe a little funny stuff about the nothing major.
Right. So 200 and
I'll be back.
58 divided by 283, 91%.
I'll be right back.
Wow.
If I'm doing that math correct. Wow. So that's
almost as high as Ho Chi Minh. When we voted for Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah, because it looks like the opposition only got 26. If I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly or not, but in terms of seats won, that's in terms of seats won.
Anyway, so
seat change was okay. So landslide regardless. Okay.
Yeah. So that would indicate that NLD at least are very, very popular. However, let's remember that a lot of the ethnic minorities are completely disenfranchised and not voting. So that really.
Okay. All right. So let me actually footnote that.
So lately we've just been
doing like 91% in the Burmese.
Would you say the majority of the ethnic minorities?
That is so hard
cannot
to say.
vote? Okay, I'll just say a large number.
So basically this whole time in the past, 10 minutes, we've been talking about Burma. We can go on to what's been going on with the ethnic minorities.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So I kind of understand the situation, and I kind of get the military versus. It seems like a factional dispute within the Burmese ethnicity, and then it seems like so now we can circle back and catch up. So when we last left off with the ethnic minorities, I think the last thing I really heard about was the Shan people in the opium triangle, the Golden Triangle.
You have flags, right? Can you pull those up?
Yeah, you want to go look at that now?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that. Let me change things up here. So this is actually a site that G runs. It's called openburma.org. Currently it's offline, but we do have the archive.org version of it. So I'm going to share that. But if you're watching this later, you could try going to openburma.org.
So scroll down a bit.
So here's some flags. Okay.
Okay.
So Tamada, okay, now I know, now I have an anchor at least. I know what this is. When I was looking at this, because G sent me this like 2 or 3 days ago, and I was looking at it, and I was like adrift. But now at least I know the Tamada is the Burma Army. They have 500,000 troops, and they're actively fighting. Okay, all right. Walk us through this.
So if you scroll all the way to the bottom and then back up again real quick, you can see there's like about 24 armies, I think, on here. And some of them are pretty large. These numbers here account for reserve troops. So it's not like you've got, 12,000 troops actively fighting at once for the Kachin Independence Organization, for example. So all these armies, other than one, are an ethnic minority army. Right. So this kind of gives you a idea about how many different factions there are. And some of them are allied with the Tamada, it has to be said. So the United Wa State Army, they're allied with the Tamada at the moment.
I saw that. That was these.
No,
that's the Wa National Army.
National Army. They're tiny. In the middle left column, United Wa State Army.
The United Wa State Army.
So they're the biggest, and people might have heard about a army in Burma who is sponsored by the Chinese government, and this is them. Generally I won't like criticize China publicly because I don't think that's a very productive thing for me to do as a leftist, but I'm not a fan of China's support for the Wa State Army. And they make no real secret of this, that they support them. They give them military equipment, pretty good military equipment as well. So that's just something. I mean, I've seen some really shitty takes on Twitter being like, yeah, there's this cool Maoist army in Burma. No. They're not the cool guys.
Hold on.
No, well, what is Wa? Is Wa an ethnic minority? Because there's also the Wa National Army down here.
Yeah, so there's two. But the Wa...
Just a little bit. 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Okay.
So there's about...
The United Wa State Army is a... Oh, go ahead. You're probably supposed to explain it.
I was just going to say, there are like, for example, there are like 3 Karen armies, right? And there's like 2 Shan armies. Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm
gonna go here. Idea about how many different factions.
Do have the archive.org version of it, so I'm gonna share that. But if you're watching this later, you could try going to openburma.org.
So scroll down a bit.
So here's some flags. Okay. So Tamada, okay, now I know. Now I have an anchor at least. I know what this is.
When
I was looking at this, because G sent me this like 2 or 3 days ago, and I was looking at it, and I was like adrift. But now at least I know the Tamada is the Burma Army. They have 500,000 troops, and they're actively fighting. Okay, all right. Walk us through this.
So if you scroll all the way to the bottom and then back up again real quick, you can see there's like about 24 armies, I think, on here. And some of them are pretty large. These numbers here account for reserve troops. So it's not like you've got, 12,000 troops actively fighting at once for the Kachin Independence Organization, for example. So all these armies, other than one, are an ethnic minority army. Right. So this kind of gives you a idea about how many different factions there are.
Wow.
And some of them are allied with the Tamada, it has to be said. So the United Wa State Army, they're allied with the Tamada at the moment.
I saw that. That was these.
No,
that's the Wa National Army.
They're tiny. In the middle left column, United Wa State Army.
The United Wa State Army.
So they're the biggest, and people might have heard about a army in Burma who are sponsored by the Chinese government, and this is them. Generally I won't like criticize China publicly because I don't think that's a very productive thing for me to do as a leftist, but I'm not a fan of China's support for the Wa State Army. And they make no real secret of this, that they support them. They give them military equipment, pretty good military equipment as well.
See what he said right there again? Let me see. What?
Idea about how many different factions there are. And some of them are allied with the Tamada, it has to be said. So the United Wa State Army, they're allied with the Tamada at the moment.
I saw that. That was these.
No,
that's the Wa National Army.
They're tiny. in the middle left column. Yeah, United Wa State Army.
The United
Yeah.
Wa State Army.
So they're the biggest, and people might have heard about a army in Burma who are sponsored by the Chinese government, and this is them. Like generally I won't like criticize China publicly because I don't think that's a very productive thing for me to do.
I see what he says. So yeah, criticizing China publicly is kind of weird or risky. But there is a lot of weird shit about China. Okay. Also, particular, the timing is really trippy these days. I think it just depends on how you speak about things. Okay. And what kind of words you use and how's your rhetoric. So yeah, so now we see, okay, China supports United Wa State Army. They fund them, they help them out. They're the biggest and they're allied with the Tamada. I have a friend in Burma that recently said that Burmese don't like China at this moment. So because of this what's going on right now. And he's worried about his life too. So I'll just stop right there and I'll press play real quick.
But I'm not a fan of China's support for the Wa State Army, and they make no real secret of this, that they support them. They give them military equipment, pretty good military equipment as well. So that's just something. I mean, I've seen some really shitty takes on Twitter being like, yeah, there's this cool Maoist army in Burma. No, they're not the cool guys. Come on.
They're not cool. No, they're not cool. What is Wa? Is Wa an ethnic minority? Because there's also the Wa National Army down here.
Yeah, so there's two.
So that is another thing. Westerners need to stop talking about other countries. You know, especially like when you have like dogmatic MLs. They always want to bring up China. And then people argue about China, and then they discuss about China and their situations and what they're doing and all this stuff. Like we need to stop, like all leftists, okay? And also have real discussions. But the reason why maybe people get confused or say, "Oh, they're like a Maoist army and stuff," is because they try to filter stuff and side with China no matter what. No criticisms. No true leftist criticism. We got purity politics and dogma within the West, among the left. And also Western leftists literally need to stop talking about other countries because they don't know what's going on. They need to focus in their own local area, focus on their home, and focus at their workplace and organize from there too. Organize within their workplace and in their community. You know, you can work with different groups, Food Not Bombs, work with unions, all these things. Start a grassroots movement that helps support politicians that can make your projects easier and then grow from there. Okay. But that's another thing too. But people just need to just stop, you know, and then talk to people that have actual information from those areas, that lived in those areas or traveled in those areas, or that live from that area, or who is a person from that area. Like me, I have a friend I talked to. He's from Burma, and he's actually a socialist anarchist. And tells me a lot of stuff that's going on over there. So it's really interesting. So I'll press play again.
Oh, the other one is tiny.
Okay.
So there's about
the United Wa State Army is a. Oh, go ahead. You're probably supposed to explain it.
I was just going to say, there are like, for example, there are like 3 Karen armies, right? And there's 2 Shan armies. Yeah.
Okay. And so the Wa. So these are all ethnic minorities. Wa, the Karen.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Wa are allied with the Burmese. Is that what you're saying? I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
This specific.
Yes, that's
this
specific
army is allied with the Tamada.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Also,
now the Tamada army
yeah.
is technically it's like the national army, so it's technically, at least on paper, supposed to represent all the ethnic minorities too. But I'm guessing it doesn't actually.
No.
Really?
No. Holy
wait,
shit!
the Tamada is supposed to represent.
You see, information getting cleared here from a person that. This is why you don't listen to weird leftists in the U.S. when it has to do with other countries. Focus on leftism here in your own country and try to go for actual information or talk to people that live there or have lived there or traveled there that has some kind of idea. Not so much about the travelers, though. Somebody that has actually lived there at least like a year or so, but there's also other people that has not lived there, has really good infos because there are connections with people in that area, like direct connection directly. So they have better info. And those people probably look at everybody else and look at everybody funny when they tell all these like confusing stories, like this confusion and creates complications even in our conversation. So yeah. This is interesting.
Yeah,
this is a pretty good interview. I like this.
I suppose so. Yeah, come on,
but it's in practical purposes a Burmese.
Yes.
Military.
Yes.
Is that fair to say? Okay.
Yeah. To give you an example. Okay, let me tell a little story about a guy I used to live with. So he was born. He's a Karenni guy. They have an army, and he was an orphan. He grew up in a orphanage in Shan State in Burma. He got kicked out of the orphanage the day he turned 18, was living homeless. He was sleeping at like a drug house, I guess we'd call it a crack house or something. And he got arrested when it got raided. He goes to prison, and in prison, really horrific conditions. The Tamada come in one day and they say, does anyone speak ethnic minority languages? And he goes, yeah, okay, I do. They're like, okay, you're free, come with us. Except he wasn't free. He was now a slave to the Tamada, and he had to
oh my gosh.
He was basically
Translate?
Translate. He was like on patrol with them, going and harassing, sometimes killing and burning down Karenni villages. And he was, carrying shit for them, digging for them. And one day in the night, he just, sprinted off into the forest, ran into the jungle and made his way to a refugee camp. And that's kind of what they do. That's kind of what the Tamada do. Is quite a classic strategy. They pick up ethnic minority people, people they consider to be, weak and easily manipulated, and they put them to work. They call them like porters, but a real word is slave. And they'll use them for
that's reminding me of like the concentration camps in Nazi Germany where they would, take like Jewish people or
it seems worse in Burma though.
Romani people or whatever who had like specific skills and make them slaves for them. That's disgusting.
It's really horrible. It still happens as well. And I also just quickly, since we're talking about the brutality of the Tamada against minorities, I mean, they also in horrible, huge amounts of rape of ethnic minority women. It happens a lot. So much so that there's kind of a expression I've heard a few times, which is if you're an ethnic minority woman, it's a curse to be born beautiful. And they'll even like families might send their daughters to refugee camps because they know,
because this is the second time you've mentioned the refugee camps, and I don't really know much about those. Like, what's the status of those? Where do they tend to be? And like, what are they? Who's setting them up? Is that a United Nations thing?
So it depends what country they've gone to. If you want to put up a map, we can point some stuff.
He got a map.
The ones in Thailand I have the most experience with. They are supposedly run by the United Nations, some of them, but
so they're camps for Burmese refugees or
mostly they'll be Shan or Karen or Karenni in Thailand.
Right. Sorry, I'm confused because I'm trying to I don't know what to call the country to make this make sense. They're trying to. So the camps are for people that are coming from the state called Myanmar, but they're in Thailand and they're set up by the United Nations.
I can't remember who set them up initially. I'm not exactly sure, but they're funded by the United Nations. But realistically, they're controlled by the ethnic armed groups.
Oh, really? In Thailand, though?
Yes. I've been. Yes.
Interesting. What does the Thai government think of that?
The Thai government pretends they don't exist.
Interesting. Wow.
Mostly. Unless
is there some reason? Because it feels like the Thai government, from our last conversation, this is a segue into talking about Thailand for a second, but it feels like the Thai government would not be cool with this.
They're getting increasingly not cool with it, but they were kind of okay with it for quite a few years because there's a really long history of animosity between Thailand and Burma. Like they kind of
that's why
ancient rivals, this stuff.
Are these camps normally are they like all along the border and in the north and the south, or
mostly like the northern border with Laos, mostly like on the left hand side directly to the east of Naypyidaw, right? So around there, yeah, and then but all along the border. So they're pressed right up against the border.
I see.
So around there, like Mae Hong Son. Yeah. So then there's another set of camps. So there's kind of three main sets of camps. The other ones are around, how to describe this? Okay, if you see like the A in Burma.
Yes.
So all the way from like there to like Laos along the border.
And
all
China?
The way up to Myitkyina. Yeah, with China. There's camps all around there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
I'm sure China doesn't.
They're not in China. They're not in China. They're just.
They're right on the border.
Side. So this brings me on to another interesting thing, which is that these territories are controlled by insurgent groups.
Damn.
And that's why they have camps there. So like the Kachin Independence Army have the most territory around there. And they administer a lot of the camps.
So they're set up by
insurgent groups.
Insurgent groups.
Yeah.
So these are folks that specifically want independence.
Yeah. Or federalism is what they'd say. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So the Kachin Independence Army, who have the most territory, which is around just to the east of Myitkyina, they have like two cities of like 20,000 people, which are completely under their control of the Independence Army. And they have a civilian government, the Kachin Independence Organization. I was very friendly with them. They're pretty nice people. Yeah.
So, okay. All right. And then you said there's one more group of refugee camps, or?
That would be the Rohingya camps, which would be just above. You see the Bangladesh border around.
Yeah. I was thinking of over here.
So that's where the Rohingya camps are.
Okay. Are they? Do you know which side of the border they're on? Just out of curiosity.
They'd be on the Bangladesh side.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Bangladesh.
I see. Okay. So, and these are all very.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they're not really like affiliated with each other. I guess they're just sort of.
No, not really. What, these different areas?
Yeah.
No, not really.
What were you gonna say?
I was just going to say that there's also a huge number of refugees inside of Thailand, specifically, like Chiang Mai, which is, a very big city in Thailand that a lot of people have heard of. Like, I would say that's maybe like 20% Shan refugees living there. Like, there's so many.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So while we're looking at this map and we're talking about the ethnic minorities, maybe you could talk me through how that breaks down geographically.
Okay.
So where's the Burmese territory? That's the first question, I guess. Like,
you see all these little cities in the middle running through that river basin there?
From like Manua to Rangoon?
Yeah. That's basically all the ethnic Burman area around that lower.
Do they go to the
area.
Coasts or no?
Yeah.
Like to the east?
Yeah. Mostly it's central, in the center.
Okay, so it's kind of like this area.
Yeah.
Essentially. Okay. All right, so this is Burmese.
This is all very
everything else.
Way, everybody who's going to comment.
Oh yeah, please don't hold G accountable for my shitty map skills. This is we're shooting off the hip here. In fact, I think that openburma.org has a great map, but it's currently down. So we're just doing the best we can with what we got. Okay, so roughly don't take our word for it, but basically this is like the Burmese area.
Like
but I know that like Rangoon is super diverse. Like when I was in Rangoon, is it Rangoon or Yangon? Everyone was saying Yangon when I was there.
You can say Yangon.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was in Yangon, it was very diverse. There were like, I saw like just felt like there were all kinds of different ethnicities all around. It felt very mixed. How does that shake out? Like, is there tension within the city of Yangon, or is it like?
Yeah, so a lot of ethnic minority people in Yangon have been joining the current uprising, and we do need to talk about we will talk about the uprising soon. I promise everyone. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of people have been joining it. Yeah, tense for sure, especially if you're Muslim. You get, because it's a bit more, you can tell if somebody's wearing a hijab or some prayer clothes or something like that. They're more likely to get harassed by the police or something like that.
As an aside, I just want to say, remarkable thing about being in Yangon, like one of the most striking things is the diversity of religion that I saw in that city. Like, because in my hotel room, I would hear like a Muslim prayer call, and then I would hear like the Tibetan chanting, and then I would hear like Catholic church bells. It was like seriously, it was very striking. Like, and everywhere when you walk around, you'll just see like a temple, and then you'll see like I think I saw like a Chinese kind of Chinese Buddhist temple, and I saw pagoda. Yeah, I saw. I mean, like, yeah, just all kinds of religion there and it was extremely like, it wasn't just a few people. It was like a lot of people representing each religion and each ethnicity. So that was pretty striking to me. I don't know if it's still like that or if there's.
Oh, no, it is. Sure.
Yeah.
If people are in Thailand, you go to Mae Sot, is like the kind of mini version of that, which is basically this town, Thailand, which is almost entirely refugees from Burma. It's a fascinating place. Yeah.
I see. So, okay. And I guess that the ethnic minorities in Yangon probably at some point, maybe it was a long time ago, maybe it was recently, but they immigrated there from wherever their ethnic minorities' homeland is.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Or?
Yeah, went to study, is a lot of what my friends have done, or go there to work in a business or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Or just find work.
And the other thing that's interesting, and just to talk about really quickly, is the capital, which I know is brand new.
Yeah.
And like pretty much, 5 years ago, it was almost empty because it was like brand new. Like they had just built a city to be the capital. Is that accurate? Because that was kind of the impression that I got.
So that's Naypyidaw in the middle there.
Yeah.
They built it. Well, you know why they built it, right? It's so that they had this safe place to put the government, so that the people wouldn't come and kick them out, right?
Really? See, I must have heard a propaganda version of the story then, because I was told by the NGO folks that I was hanging out with that it was built in the center of the country so that all the different ethnic minorities could. It was like equidistant. The people I was with were super Aung San Suu Kyi stands too. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that, but I'm just
like
relaying
the fucking that. NGOs. Can I just go on a little rant about the NGOs?
Please do.
I was an NGO.
I was pretty disillusioned.
Yeah. But I worked in a tiny one. We had no fucking money. And I'm not being jealous here. But like policy-wise, the stuff they were doing was pretty awful, like you've mentioned before, EJ. But they would like fly from Rangoon to Naypyidaw 3 or 4 times a week just for a meeting. Like the amount of money that flooded.
Yeah.
Was disgusting.
I was flown. Yeah, that happened to me, so I know exactly what you're talking
about. And even like the refugee camps on the Thai side of the border, like I was like virtually living in some of these camps, and like I would see the fucking NGOs come from Bangkok in their big fucking 4x4s, with the air conditioned on, with their nice pressed white suits, and we're doing some real good field work, and then they fuck off back to their 5-star hotel that evening. Fuck those.
That's guys. What a lot of what I saw felt like. There was a lot of like, it was almost like NGO tourism or something. It felt like it was.
People go there to get something for their CV. That's what it is.
Yeah. That's what it felt like. Yeah. Okay. So right. So, and I know that like. Yeah, because I went to a beach town. I don't remember which one it was, but and like the travel there by bus was so weird. Luna remembers better than I did, but like the travel there by bus was so weird because like we had to go through ethnic minority territory, and it was like kind of going into another country. Yeah, it was like very difficult to travel. Basically, I couldn't. There's no way I would have been able to figure out how to do it alone. I had people with me, so
yeah.
like
Sure.
handlers.
Because because we planned to go to Myanmar, but we didn't dare to because we didn't prepare for it well enough.
Yeah, we were going to go to Myanmar. Luna and I were going to go to Myanmar in like 2018.
18.
But we just were looking at the logistics of traveling around, and it's not a simple thing to just like travel across the country. You have to. Is that accurate to say? I mean, that's the impression that I got.
It's got really crummy infrastructure, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just also feels like there are places you just can't or shouldn't go.
Oh yeah, there are
like
places
war
which
zones.
are like I've been stuck in towns for like days because of fighting going on around there outside of the town. So,
yeah.
And
that's what it was.
Yeah. So like for example, I've been like in Myitkyina, for example, like when I was there, you weren't allowed to leave. You weren't allowed to go north of there because of the Tamadar blocking you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. Did you get that? Do you know what?
Yes, I don't know. What's going on.
Excuse me.
Sorrow Foundation. What is it?
Oh, I don't know.
Somebody's asking me in the chat and then in Vietnamese, and I'm reading. Actually, I don't know the answer. I'm sorry, Mammoth. Actually, I don't know the answer, and then I will remember this, and I will do some research after the live stream.
Oh, that's good.
About this.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
in
much.
Vietnamese, so I can only understand like 5% of it.
Somebody that says that was good.
All right. So I think we're kind of at a point where we can start to. So we have a lot of these different ethnic minorities. They have a lot of different armies. They are, some of them are allied with the Tamada, but most are not.
Almost all are not. Yeah.
Most of them are not. A couple of them, I guess, are. Okay. So and then we have refugee camps. So I guess we can get to the state of ethnic minority politics today. Are most of them trying to push for a federalist structure where they stay together as one cohesive nation state, or do they want independence? Or
generally the realistic demand is federalism. If you remember when I mentioned about Aung San's initial plan in 46, it was called the Panglong Agreement. So there's when Suu Kyi got in, there was a lot of talk of new Panglong. Okay, we're going to do a new Panglong, and that obviously didn't happen. So a lot of the NLD, Suu Kyi's party, people who aren't in jail right now have been saying to the ethnic minorities since the uprising started in February, they've been saying, oh, hey, look, if we get back into government, new Panglong is coming, guys. Don't worry. We mean it this time.
Wow.
I don't know if you want to believe them or not. But,
yeah.
And the reason, I guess this is speculation because we don't know what's in her heart, but it seems like the reason Aung San Suu Kyi does not want federalism is because she's a Burmese nationalist in her own right. Like, Burmese nationalist light, I guess, or something like that, or is that is that baseless? That's just the impression I've got. So I don't know.
There's definitely a found. I mean, that's kind of what I believe. I think it's an opinion though. Like we can't be sure. We don't know. Maybe she had a gun held to her head the whole time. I don't think so. But
sure.
Yeah,
I got it. Okay. All right. So but regardless, go ahead.
I was just going to say, can we talk about what happened in February then?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're caught up. There's not much more to the. I mean, like. We kind of get the point about the ethnic. Is there anything else major about the ethnic minority politics that we need to understand, or
not
to
particularly?
Get there?
We kind of can bounce off what's going on with them now since the coup.
Okay,
this is good.
So let's come to February.
Cool. We got the whole
the
main gist.
Remember, just February
of all the shit, the stuff that goes on in Burma. So yeah.
So. Basically,
now we're going on to just.
I already mentioned a little bit. There were the elections where the NLD, steamrolled it, and then in the weeks leading up to the coup, there were a lot of noises that there was going to be a coup, and lo and behold, a coup happened. So a lot of civilian leadership were arrested and imprisoned or put under house arrest.
This is because of the election results, right? That was the conceit.
There's also been these weird charges thrown at Suu Kyi, like supposedly she imported walkie-talkies without paying the correct tax or something like that. Okay. So it's pretty weird.
I remember that. So she was imprisoned, right?
Yeah,
wasn't she imprisoned?
Under house arrest, I think. Yeah.
House arrest.
Yeah. Or maybe she is in prison. Actually, I'm not sure.
I just
in
checked
prison.
she's under house
Okay.
arrest.
Okay, currently under house arrest. I think she was in prison for a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that was a
now
big.
she's under house.
If I'm not mistaken, I just remember that. And then she got released from prison, and that was because of the walkie-talkie thing. If I'm not mistaken, I'll look that up and fact check that while you talk. But yeah, continue, G, with the.
So then what happens is, I mean, I remember talking to a really respected journalist, and he was saying, oh, there's probably not going to be that much of a protest movement. The junta's promised elections 1 year from now. And all the NLD leadership are in prison. So, maybe there'll just be elections in a year and we won't see much of a movement against it. No. Because what has happened and has really warmed my heart is all basically like that 80% who just rose up, and they really have risen up.
Yeah. So she wasn't placed in prison, but she was like arrested and in jail. That's what I was thinking of. So yeah. And then she was eventually just put in her house arrest. So okay.
So the protest started with a strike. Well, mostly it was trade union and student activists at first, and the trade unions were very, very present at the beginning. I was talking to a comrade the other day, and he was, moaning about how pathetic the middle class Suu Kyi supporters were being when he was like, oh, he was saying like the middle class people were saying, oh, they'll release her soon. Don't worry. Oh, this is just a show to show how strong they still are. It'll be fine. And then they were saying, oh, the US will intervene and some bullshit, whatever. So that it really has been the more left-leaning working class groups that have started uprising, very, very much so. Like I said, trade unions, factory workers, and progressive students. Yeah,
they're the ones that are having the uprising, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
In response to this. Okay,
let me rewind this
response,
really quick. For
trade unions. What were the three groups? Trade unions. I think that's important.
Trade unions.
This is interesting. Hold on.
Yeah.
What kind of workers?
Were being when he was like, oh, he was saying like the middle class people were saying, oh, they'll release her soon. Don't worry. Oh, this is just a show to show how strong they still are. It'll be fine. And then they were saying, oh, the US will intervene and some bullshit, whatever. So that it really has been the more left-leaning working class groups that have started uprising, very, very much so. Like
that's
said,
pretty
trade
good.
unions, factory workers, and progressive students. Yeah.
They're the ones that are having the uprising, basically.
Yes.
In response to this. Okay,
so this is interesting. Okay, write this down. So the left-leaning
trade unions. What were the three groups? Trade unions.
So basically, the left-leaning groups are the ones that are moving the uprising. Not really like the Suu Kyi supporters. Yeah, Suu Kyi supporters are out there too. A lot of people are out there, but they're mainly the ones that are pushing this movement, pretty much. So it's very interesting. Let's hear some more.
Trade unions, I missed workers. Yeah.
What kind of workers?
Workers. I don't know.
Okay, workers. Yeah. Okay. And progressive students.
Yeah, progressive students. And when I say progressive students, I mean a lot of like anarchists and communists and stuff. As well as like
comrades.
Yeah, comrades.
Oh, hold on. Let me move.
There are liberals in there as well.
Real quick, rewind a little fast.
Okay, so in response, trade unions. What were the three groups? Trade unions. I think that's important.
Trade unions.
I missed
workers. Yeah.
Workers.
What kind of workers?
Workers. I don't know.
Okay, workers. Yeah. Okay. And progressive students.
Yeah, progressive students.
Progressive
and when I say
progressive
students, I mean a lot of like anarchists and communists and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
usually
like
progressive students
land
in the socialist arena. So anyway,
there are liberals in there as well.
I put him. I put him in there.
Of course,
and also, like I mentioned before, ethnic minority people in Yangon and Mandalay and some of the bigger cities. But these are ethnic minority civilians, right?
Not the army.
Yeah.
Not private army, but not the
insurgent.
I don't know what you call that. Insurgent armies. Okay. Joining in on the uprising. Okay. So, now this is where things get further complicated because it feels like it's almost a new dynamic happening with these uprisings. So like what, like, because I don't know to what extent this is, but it does feel like I've seen pictures and photos of like communists and anarchists, and I don't know what they want. And I don't know how I'd also like to know, I don't know, do you want to go down that road first? Or do you want to talk about the ethnic minorities outside of the cities? And what they're doing? I mean, I don't know which.
Yeah, the term someone knows, EAO, ethnic armed organization. Very good. That's NGO talk right there. Basically, a lot of the people who are taking part in the protests are younger people who are disillusioned with Suu Kyi and the NLD, and from having spoken to quite a few of them, I get the impression they're really trying to forge their own space in the Burma political sphere, right? So
wow, that sounds
they're
good.
doing incredible organizing at the moment, organizing their local communities, organizing their workplaces, organizing their universities to not only go out in the streets and protest every day, but forming mutual aid groups and local governance for their communities as well. Like a big thing that a lot of people are saying is, even once the fighting, like the street fighting, dies down, which it will, we need to be prepared to not let the military come in and govern us again. We need to govern. We need to have governing systems of our own.
Yeah.
So like
basically federalism.
Yeah, which is really exciting, right? So.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so much cooler than I've heard. I haven't heard about any of this shit from the media at all.
Okay, so this can I talk on that for a sec? Because
yeah, please do.
There's also this other thing going on. Remember I mentioned the 88 uprising in 1988?
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
So a lot of people from the 88 uprising went abroad and became very cozy with the media, Western media particularly, as well as in Thailand and places like that. And so when this uprising started in 2021, they were speaking, they were the points of contact for the media. A lot of these people haven't been in the country for like decades now.
Wow.
So a lot of the, my friends, my comrades in Yangon, they call them grifters, right? They're saying like these opportunist grifters are coming in and claiming this revolution as theirs. They're like, no, this is our revolution. We're the ones fighting it, right? And the same is true. The same is true of NLD people. So from Suu Kyi's party, NLD
they don't side with the trade
who are overseas when the coup happened or managed
basically.
Or something.
The media don't want to mention the trade unions, the workers, and the progressive students. Of course. So they're not going to give the news like a certain way. Maybe because these fucking liberals, actually want Suu Kyi there. So very interesting. Actually, Suu Kyi is better than the junta, but not good enough. Not good at all. They want federalism. So they're federalist, which is good. Meaning, like, anarchists used to call themselves federalists before the term anarchism was out. They were called the federalists, not anarchists, because it's like a decentralized system. Each community has autonomy, and all individuals have their own autonomy working in a federalist society.
Like they're really claiming this. Oh, look, the people are rising up in support of the NLD. My comrades, I wish he was here. I guess the internet's cut off now because he hasn't replied to me. But if my comrade was here, he would say, "Fuck no, we are fighting for ourselves, not for you, NLD."
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Good.
Okay. That is amazing. So what are the dynamics? So now we have three essentially.
Can I throw one more thing out there? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, please do.
I was just going to say, I don't want to make this sound like there's a communist revolution happening because that is not the case.
Yeah,
there are many NLD supporters who are also out there fighting in the streets as well and joining in. There's a tactical alliance between liberals, even people who are quite conservative but are just against the junta, all the way from that side of the spectrum to very, very leftist people. And it is very hard to know how these demographics break down. I did a group interview about a week ago And I know that I spoke to 3 people. I know one of them is very left wing. One of them I'm not sure. One of them I know is a liberal, and they seem to be in complete unity. So it's very hard to know.
Wow.
There's a real tactical alliance going on, and it's very hard to know how it breaks down ideologically.
Are there people?
I like tactical alliances.
This sounds. I don't know. Like other people, like in Thailand, there are people who definitely still support the monarchy. Are there people who, like normal people who are not really like in the military, who still support the military?
It's a good question. Yeah, very few, very few.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't have a lot of popular support, and this is a pretty popular uprising against them. Is that fair to say?
Definitely.
Okay, so just to kind of try to make sure that I'm comprehending, Luna, feel free to ask any questions yourself. You have the NLD, who are forming a at least temporary but tactical alliance with this new leftist movement. Does this new movement have any kind of name yet, or is it just?
Yeah, we can call it the alliance is called the movement is called the Civil Disobedience Movement. So the idea is you can follow them. They have a Twitter account actually. Let me find that out for you. It's like the biggest Twitter account, the one that most people follow. It's got 97,000 followers. I'll post it in the comments.
Wow. Okay. And this is a coalition that includes some NLD members. It includes leftists. It includes liberals.
Yeah. Sorry, how do I post
if you just put it in the private chat,
okay,
I could throw it into the comments for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a broad coalition for sure. And politically, that account is not leftist for sure. Broad coalition.
I see. Okay. Now, what is their goal? Just to get the military out and form? Do they want to like reinstate Aung San Suu Kyi and the elections that were already held, or do they want like new elections? What do they want?
Well, this
like
is
a totally new constitution.
So I literally asked this exact question in that interview I did. So maybe I should just pull up the answer and they can use their words and not mine.
Okay.
Let me just find it. Okay, here it is. Oh yeah, just a couple other things I want to throw in from this interview I did. I asked them if they're trying to arm themselves, like with weapons, and they said trying to arm ourselves, but are limited by our capabilities. We are weak in this regard, and we were not prepared for this fight.
Wow, that's something for every leftist, wherever you are, to. That's something that I've heard. I mean, like Vong Wen Zap talked about that. Che Guevara talked about it a lot. I mean, every revolutionist in history has talked about we need to be preparing for the worst. Not expecting the best, but preparing for the worst. Keep going though.
So when I said, what are your demands to the military government? And this is quite interesting. We can kind of get into it. They said, it's simple. The military government and all their bureaucratic structures need to be destroyed. So when they say bureaucratic structures, that's referring to that kind of superstructure that I mentioned before, in terms of the military having a lot of control over civilian institutions, having a lot of control over the economy, a lot of private businesses. They call them lackeys. They say the country's sort of military lackeys. So these will be like business owners that will have like large businesses and will funnel the money to the military.
Damn.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, is this article that you're reading from on dingdang.com or where can we find
it's just on Twitter. I did a big tweet thread. I can post it.
Oh, okay.
I think we heard enough.
Yeah, if you put it in the private chat, I'll share it out.
So it's limited.
Great. Okay. So hold on. I'm getting the link in now.
Let me stop this video now.
So how are the let me put it this way. Let me ask this question more visually. How are
Ding.
These people involved with all this? What's happening with the the EAOs, the ethnic armed organizations, these armies?
My comrade just read the message.
They're all in a civil war, though. That's
okay. If he can come on, he's welcome to. I mean, we could reschedule whatever.
Okay, I just sent him another message saying, "Can you join?" And no, I got the regular tick that it hasn't sent. I think he's probably got internet problems. Okay. So where were we at? Yeah. So okay, the insurgent ethnic armed groups, blah blah. So basically, things were pretty quiet immediately after the coup, and they were kind of a bit nervous, didn't really know what was going to happen. And then once the uprising really started to kick off, that fighting has become very, very intense. So there's been offensives by the Kachin Independence Army and the KNLA, who are the Karen National Liberation Army, and they both captured fairly major Tamadar points, so like outposts, and they claimed a hell of a lot of weaponry and supplies, which was pretty cool for them. And the downside, though, is that the Air Force has been bombing the shit out of particularly the Karen lately, as well as the Kachin. So I think about 3,000 villagers have been displaced in Karen state.
Wow. This is all happening right now?
Yeah, right now.
This is all happening like now?
Yeah, right now.
Wow.
Damn.
So I think 3,000 displaced
really
in Karen,
heavy.
and in Kachin, maybe quite a few hundred. Also, I should have mentioned this actually. In the uprising 2 days ago in the cities in central Burma, how many people? It's like over 100 people were shot in the street in one day.
Yeah, I saw that. I did see that.
Country.
So I thought this was mostly like an urban thing, actually.
Oh, these flags?
No. I mean the uprising. Just
it is. But there's people uprising in very small towns, in very small cities. Even in I have a friend in Loikor, which is like a very small, rural-ish city, and he's yes. Comrade says, "Wait, please."
Awesome.
Okay, he might be going.
How
much longer? How much longer do you think?
If he can come on, I mean, we can go.
Okay, cool.
We can go longer. It's up to him.
Oh, okay. Damn.
Or we can reschedule if he can't work it out with this internet. We can do it another day. So whatever's. I'd love to talk to him, but no pressure.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Well, I feel bad just being a black guy talking about all of this.
I know.
Actually,
yeah, I mean, we're doing the best we can.
I may pause this
between Vietnam and Myanmar. It's like not really many things happen because both of us had to deal with our own shit for decades.
Yeah, well, let's kind of. I want to finish talking about the ethnic minority stuff, and then maybe Luna and G can talk.
We got enough of this. Okay. We got a good idea. What the hell is going on over there? Man, good, interesting information. Oh shit! The fuck is that? Me on there? Yep. The first major jolt to China will not come from the U.S. What? What's this? Oh my god! I don't want to I don't want to look at that. Let's go. What do I have here? Okay. Let's watch something funny. Funny animal videos. What's new? Most recent. Oh shit. What? What? There are some. Let's see. Send it with something funny. What?
You're not allowed to have that. You don't know us from a hole in the wall. You're just walking around eating people's buns.
Buddy, you gotta let go.
Don't let go. I won't let go.
He doesn't know which one to get. They don't know which one to pick up.
Where'd it go?
He's like, what? It's like, what? Where is it at? Ooh. Oh. Ah.
Oh my god! Oh, Mom! That's what I thought.
Oh shit. What the fuck? Oh. Oh. Oh man. He's looking at her like, what?
If you're happy and you know it, do a spin. If you're happy and you know it, do a spin. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, do a spin.
What?
Must.
What? Jeez. Small puppy.
Bentley,
What?
Bentley, where are you? Come here. Bentley.
That looks funny, actually.
Who are you?
What?
Who is this dog?
Is that dog just looking in somebody's tent or something?
Stop it. Let's fucking stop. No!
Ooh. Oh. Probably fucked up a lot of shit.
Oh my god.
That dog is probably going, God, jeez.
Sit. Cody, smile. Smile.
What?
Smile. Good boy. Come on.
Choke.
Jeez. Dog is acting like it's like,
Hi, Mama.
oh, it's another dog.
Okay.
Chihuahua. Damn. Nick. Yawns are contagious. What? He's just looking at the ball. Oh, he's like pushing it or something. I guess he likes doing it.
Throwing it in my face, huh? Did you eat my breakfast sandwich?
Oh, turns away.
Did you do this? Did you?
She's like, no, don't look at. She's shaking now.
What the fuck?
Lacey.
Wakey, 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 wakey. It's time for school. Come on.
What?
Wake up. It's time for school. Come on, man.
Wow. That dog just buries himself.
He's like, I gotta turn around. Why is this moving?
Ah! What? It's my... Ooh.
Come here. What?
What happened? I don't understand. Just looking at another dog. No sound. Oh shit!
Yoda. Stop. Stop.
Открой, пожалуйста, вот тайну. Почему ты такая злая? Почему ты такая злая? Я ничего плохого тебе не сделала. Почему ты такая злая?
It's a puppy.
Don't eat the plant, okay? No!
I wish they were up the other way.
Napoleon, what are you doing? You got your donut? Oh, thank you. Can you see even? Oh, hi. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right.
Use the stairs. Go, use the stairs. Rocky. Use the stairs, boy. Just use the
It wants to get
stairs.
spoiled.
Come on.
And be like, pick me up.
Парковка.
Oh wow.
Hey, pipe down.
Puppy. Pipe down. Why no sound?
Please stop biting me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ow! Dad's coming.
What?
That's what I thought.
Ooh. Oh. Oh. Oh, it's covered in trash too, or something. Ooh, that was really bad. So I'm about to end the stream. I'll see you guys later. I'll come back on later on today. I'll be either playing Brawl Stars. Brawl Star? Is it Brawl Star? or Wild Rift. One of those, because I can do gaming from mobile really well. So I gotta really get new CPUs for my computer. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm gonna end this stream. Thanks for stopping by, whoever stopped by. And stream. Boom.